AEW had 8,000 people inside Arthur Ashe Stadium tonight for its fourth Grand Slam show. Did not feel as special as past Grand Slams have felt. In many ways, it just kind of felt like another Dynamite, but in a slightly bigger building. But they did tease one attraction for tonight's show. December 17th, 2011. That was the last time that Nigel McGuinness had a singles match. 2011. It's a long time ago. And it was tonight coming into this match with Bryan Danielson. It was a very bizarre way to build to a match that was 15 years in the making. It was a very lackluster build to this match. Very rushed. They took a very bizarre path to get there. And there was some question about whether or not we were actually going to get a match. I mean, it was promoted as, will Bryan Danielson be medically cleared? Will he be able to compete in the ring tonight? But Tony Khan is not one who usually will do a bait and switch, where he'll promise a match and then he won't give it to you, or he'll dangle the carrot, but then he won't actually give it to you when you go to take the bait. There was no bait and switch. There was no angle. We got an actual match tonight between these two men. Bryan Danielson and Nigel McGuinness not only went out there and had a match, these two men went out there and they had a 20-minute match to open tonight's show. Obviously, it was not the hard-hitting, knockdown, drag-out, physical destruction that many of their earlier matches were from Ring of Honor 15 years ago, nor should anybody have expected that that is what this would have been. Especially in the case of Nigel, given that he hasn't been in the ring very much in a very long time, and Bryan Danielson is being held together apparently by bobby pins and rubber bands. That's the story they're telling with him every time we see him in the ring. He's basically being held by a thread. He's about to fall apart. What we got from these two men tonight, despite the less than stellar build, shall we say, and the rush nature of how we got here, and the lack of any interaction between the two of them on television coming into tonight, what we ended up getting here was a very good professional wrestling match between two men who cut their teeth in Ring of Honor many years ago, made a name for themselves as two of the best technical wrestlers in the world. And here they are now, all these many years later. They got to go out there. They got to, dance with each other one more time in the middle of the ring. They had a decent crowd there to do it. 8,000 people here in New York, the same city where they had many of those battles. Not that far. Not that far from where they were tonight in Queens, over in Manhattan. Many a battle they had many years ago. So it was kind of appropriate for them to get back in the ring, of all places, here in New York City. But it was the story of two men whose careers for a while there paralleled one another. And they left Ring of Honor at the same time with the expectation that they would travel the same roads and they would end up in the same place together. You have on the one hand Bryan Danielson, a man who went on to leave Ring of Honor and went on to superstardom in his career. Headlined WrestleMania, won multiple world championships, made a lot of money. On the other hand, you have Nigel McGuinness, a man who should have gone on to superstardom. And because of various circumstances, medical circumstances, it did not work out that way for him. That was really the story that we were left with coming into this match here tonight. The other big story, other than these two finally clashing in the ring coming out of tonight, is that Jon Moxley is now the new number one contender for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. It was Darby Allin. Jon Moxley said, "I want your shot." And Darby agreed to put his shot on the line in a match. But Darby had already become number one contender for the world title by winning the Royal Rampage many, many weeks ago. He was supposed to get the shot tonight against Bryan Danielson. Instead, he willingly gave it up to Jon Moxley in a match that he lost. And so now Jon Moxley is going to Wrestle Dream. Jon Moxley is going to Darby Allin's home state to headline in the main event and to challenge for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. Darby Allin looks like the biggest dweeb in the entire world. Now that we could take a step back here and see what they did, and we see the outcome of that main event tonight, putting his world championship match on the, I know he's a fighting babyface, but putting his world championship match on the line when he did not have to, when the man who he was supposed to challenge and supposedly was in no condition to defend the title here on this show, not only was Bryan Danielson on the show, but he went out there and he wrestled a 20-minute match in the opener. So the award for the biggest fucking moron goes to Darby Allin. Now that this show is over, I don't really see how this show, frankly, did a whole hell of a lot to make Darby Allin look smart or make Darby Allin look any better than he did coming into this show. I just shook my head when it was over and I said, what can you say? You know, what is there really to be said? The biggest surprise of the show, sometimes on these shows you get a surprise debut or a return. Bryan Danielson debuted in the ring. His very first match in AEW was against Kenny Omega. It was at Grand Slam. The one Grand Slam show that I went to a couple of years ago, Saraya made her AEW debut and came out and got a big reaction. You know, Britt Baker was out in the ring and out comes Saraya. Great Muta made an appearance to come to the aid of Sting on that show. So they usually give you something on these shows. The big surprise tonight was the arrival of MVP. And he's been dropping little hints, you know, that we might see him popping up somewhere else very soon. I think a lot of us figured this is going to be the place where he and Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin are going to end up landing. We did not see Bobby Lashley. We did not see Shelton Benjamin, but we did see MVP. There was, the other thing I noticed also in this show, a surprising lack of promotion for next week's 5-year anniversary show. Now, Tony Khan went last week and announced a big match with Will Ospreay against Ricochet, their first AEW match, their first match in many years. And that's clearly the big match, should be the main event on next week's show. But outside of a Britt Baker Serena Deeb match for next week, there was nothing else announced for next week. And we didn't even get Ricochet on the show tonight. You know, he wasn't even there. So that was surprising to me because, this show tonight and next week are two big episodes of Dynamite. You would think they would have given it a little more of a push, but strikingly, that did not happen tonight. Excalibur mentioned something else that I have to bring up here. He mentioned this later in the show. Excalibur said that BR Live, Bleacher Report, is shutting down their streaming service, pay-per-view service, whatever it is. They're shutting it down, and so starting with WrestleDream, you can order the AEW pay-per-view, at least domestically. I don't know, it might be different internationally, but at least here in this country. You'll have to order the pay-per-view on Triller TV, YouTube, or ppv.com. But you will no longer be able to watch the shows on BR Live, and I say good. Good. You know why BR Live is shutting down? Because it's shit. That's why. Rest in piss. This is your AEW Grand Slam Dynamite 2024 review. I am the Solomonster. It is Wednesday, September 25th, 2024. Welcome. Good to be with you here on a Wednesday night. They were in my backyard tonight. I'm in Brooklyn. They were in Queens, so not that far away from where I am, but I had to be here with all of you tonight. Wouldn't have it any other way. So do me a favor and hit that like button. Also hit the subscribe button if you are new here, if you are lurking. Go ahead and subscribe. Super chats are open, and in fact, I know there's one waiting.
Richie Rich over here
there it
dropping
is.
All this money on me. Hey, I just want you to know.
I knew it.
I think you rock. I don't mean The Rock, A Rock.
I knew it.
You rock. And I just wanted you to know that.
Boom. That is what you call a bomb right there. As the crowd makes all kinds of noise here for my boy Bobby's World, dropping a $100 super chat bomb here on this stream. Bombs away. Yes, indeed. Bobby, you get the first bomb of the night. Actually, I got to give a shout out to Jake Jones as well. Jake Jones, before I went live, dropped a $50 super chat. So Bobby and Jake, the ultimate tag team. Thank you guys. Super chats are open. in case you couldn't tell. You'll see them popping up on your screen as we go along here. I don't know what's going on. You know, they had Grand Slam tonight in Queens, right? So they have Grand Slam going on at Arthur Ashe Stadium. Here I am. I'm here in the city as well. And I'm watching Dynamite, and all of a sudden I'm getting a couple of text messages from friends of mine saying, oh, the mayor has been indicted. Mayor Adams has been indicted. And I'm like, what? I put the news on, and sure enough, our mayor, the mayor of New York City, made history tonight because he became the first mayor, the first sitting mayor in the history of New York City to be indicted for crimes. Amazing. I don't know how many of you live in New York or have been following what's been going on here in New York, but I've lost track of all the different members of this guy's administration that are under investigation, that have resigned. I mean, there is so much shit going on. It is ridiculous. We had the police commissioner resigned, had his home raided by the feds. The interim police commissioner comes in. His home gets raided by the feds. He's under investigation. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if we even have a mayor as of tomorrow. I have no idea. Apparently, this indictment is going to be unsealed tomorrow. And we'll find out what's going on. So anyway, this is going on while I'm trying to keep track of what's going on here on Dynamite. I'm like, what's going on? Like, the city is burning down around me. What's happening here? I have no idea. So anyway, we'll ain't no party like a New York City mayor party. Apparently not. Oh my goodness. Well, let's talk about Grand Slam. Because AEW did not waste any time kicking things off tonight. Grand Slam opened with Nigel McGuinness making his way down to the ring. He was not, in fact, played to the ring live by Oasis. Remember, there was some confusion about a comment he made a few weeks ago about how Oasis is going to play me down to the ring. And I knew what he meant when he said it, but some people may have taken that the wrong way. So, no, they were not there tonight. But they were not wasting any time. Already going into Nigel and Bryan. So Nigel comes out again, 15 years since the last match that these two men had, 18 years since their first match against each other. So the history was there. Could have done a better job, again, of exploiting that, of really playing that up with the two of them, live on TV in the weeks leading up to it. But clearly a lot of history there between these two. Jim Ross was there tonight. He joined on commentary for the opening match and the main event, and he sounded good, so it was good to hear JR tonight. So Nigel's in the ring, and he is waiting for Bryan Danielson. And all of a sudden, they play his music, and there's no Bryan Danielson. Nobody comes out. There is no world champion. Nigel takes the microphone. He says that the American coward just dropped the ball, and he demands that the referee count him out. And he wants Bryan to be stripped of the AEW World Championship. Even though this is not a title match, he wants him to be stripped of the title. Instead, we hear the final countdown. And then Bryan Danielson comes out. Looks fine. I guess he just wanted to make the big dramatic entrance. Now, Nigel has been in the ring one time in the last 13 years, before tonight. We saw him in the Casino Gauntlet, Wembley Stadium, all in. He looked good. That's the only time that we have seen Nigel McGuinness in the ring in the last 13 years. So I'm going to cut him a little bit of slack, but I have to say, even though on the whole I thought he looked very good, early in this match, he was throwing some slaps and strikes. These were embarrassing. They may have been palm strikes. I think they were just slaps. But my God, I mean, I have seen 6-year-old girls in ball pits, okay, at the carnival, throwing harder slaps at the other kids than Nigel was throwing at Bryan Danielson here. I'm not saying dislocate the man's jaw, but for fuck's sake, Nigel, come on. Really? Really? Again, I was not expecting the knockdown, drag-out physicality that we got 15 years ago from these two, which probably took years off their career. But these were embarrassing. I'm sorry. These were just embarrassing strikes. But it woke Danielson up. He smacked the shit out of Nigel. Nigel kind of smiled. McGuinness pulled Danielson to the outside, targeted the right arm, which was previously broken in the match he had with Okada last year. Nigel tried to drop the steps. the ring steps onto the arm, but Bryan was able to move his arm out of the way at the last second. They channeled back to their Ring of Honor days, and they teased the spot, pulling each other into the ring post. Thankfully, neither man went headfirst into the ring post because we don't have to see that ever again. Back inside, McGuinness applied the old London Dungeon. Top wrist lock. Nigel then tried a Tower of London, but Danielson escaped into the Busaiku knee. But he landed on the bad arm. McGuinness fought off a label lock by slamming the injured arm on the mat. Danielson tried an uppercut with the injured arm, and he collapsed. But then he did his moonsault, push off the top rope. He gets whipped into the corner. He does that little flip over. Only for McGuinness to club him with a lariat. Covered him. Danielson, though, kicked out of one. So we got anvil elbows here for McGuinness, or by McGuinness, who hit the Tower of London for a near fall. McGuinness almost applied a London Dungeon surfboard combo, but Danielson rolled through into the anvil elbows of his own. And for the finish, Danielson worked a label lock. Now, it didn't look like it was sunken very tight, but he had the hold applied. And Nigel is fighting it a little bit, and after initially fighting the hold, trying to fight his way out of it, he appeared to say, he appeared to say the words, "fuck you," before tapping out. Jim Ross on commentary said, "Oh, it looks like he said thank you, thank you." So I went back and I watched it. It actually did look like he said thank you. So I'm pretty sure that that's what he said, even though TBS censored the audio. And they did that a few times during this match because Nigel was cussing up a storm. So I just assumed that he must have told Danielson, "fuck you." Why else would they censor it? But I'm pretty sure he said thank you. Guess the censors got a little trigger happy tonight. After the match, Christian Cage walked out by himself because Danielson got him to tap out, so the match is over. Bryan Danielson wins. Here comes Christian Cage by himself. The rest of the patriarchy were not there. He walks out with his casino gauntlet contract, and he pulls out a pen, just like this one here, and he teases signing the contract, but you see behind him, Kip Sabian sneaks up behind him, and he snatches the pen out of his hand, and he runs backstage with it. So Christian chases after him. Now I'm going to stop here for a second. Why didn't Christian sign the contract? If there's a contract inside, why didn't he sign the contract the night that he won it? Why is he walking around with a contract that has no signature on it? What? That's something that I would think he would correct very quickly, so he could avoid this situation again in the future. But I just thought that was weird. Like, why wouldn't the contract already be signed? Like, I would have put my signature on it on night one. Right? Save some time in the future when I want to go out there and cash it in. So that was weird. So when the camera followed him, when Christian ran through the tunnel, he ran into Claudio and Pac, who were standing there blocking his path. He put the brakes on, ended up going around them in his pursuit of Kip Sabian. As far as the match itself, Nigel, let's talk about Nigel here. Nigel, he busted out the greatest hits. We saw the London Dungeon, we saw the Tower of London, we saw the Rebound Lariat. So a lot of the old school moves that were part of Nigel McGuinness's arsenal, he pretty much busted out all those moves here. With the finish they did, you know what it felt to me like? It felt like the closure that Nigel was looking for. Especially him saying thank you, before tapping out to Danielson. But I think it was the closure he was looking for after all these years. Because, he legitimately wanted this match for a very long time. And I don't know that means that he's done. He got it out of his system and he's retired now. He's never going to wrestle again. He probably will. I don't know how often, but I would think that we'll see Nigel back in the ring still, at least from time to time. But he got the match that he wanted. And he made the most of it. He went 20 minutes with the world champion. That's very different than going in there in a gauntlet match with 12 other people. This was one-on-one. There was no safety net. It was not a handicap match. It was not a tag team match. It was not a blood and guts match with 10 people. It was two men. You had Nigel McGuinness on one side, Bryan Danielson on the other, who was still one of the best wrestlers in the entire world. even as he is winding down his full-time career. He's the world champion, and Nigel was in there step for step with him for 20 minutes. That's not an easy thing to do when you have not had a singles match in 13 years. So I thought, all things considered, Nigel McGuinness looked very good. Obviously, he slowed down a little bit, but he looked very good, here in this match. Outside of those awful slaps, which I can't review this match and not bring up how just atrocious that was. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was a very good match. I only wish that they would have taken more care with the path they chose, because that was likely the last time we were going to see them in the ring against each other. This was it. This was probably the end, the final chapter for Bryan Danielson and Nigel McGuinness. And I just think it deserved a better television build. It would have been more fun. And this is the point that I made the other night on the podcast. I made it on TNT last night. Everybody who is a hardcore wrestling fan, or if you're an old school Ring of Honor fan, right? Yes, you are already aware of the history between these two men. You don't need Tony Khan to hold your hand and explain to you why Nigel McGuinness would be upset at Bryan Danielson, or the fact that they had a lot of matches back in the day and there's a history there. But it's what makes wrestling fun, right? It's the journey. It's the journey. It's the car ride getting there. Instead of just pushing a button and beaming yourself to the location, which would be great, but pushing a button and beaming yourself to where you want to go, sometimes you just want to take a step back and just enjoy the ride. And that's what I look for when it comes to these wrestling shows week to week. These promotions have many hours each week of wrestling TV to fill. And so you expect that on those shows, building to whatever the big match is going to be, you would have a segment like a face-off or a contract signing, a meeting of the minds in the ring with them. It was hard for Nigel goes out there and he has to just cut promos on a man who isn't even there. I don't know if there was some legitimate family reason why Danielson could not be on Dynamite the last 3 weeks, even the last 2 weeks. But there was really no good excuse for him not to be there at least once. So we can get these two men face to face, no physicality, but just get them face to face and let them talk about their past. Let them talk about how one guy went this way with his career, the other guy went the other way. That should have been me. You had the career that I should have had. I resent you for it. I hate your guts. And then we get to hear what Bryan Danielson has to say. All we ever heard from was Nigel McGuinness. We never heard a word from Bryan Danielson. Not one word. That's what was missing from this. That's what some people don't understand. They get very upset. They get very offended if you the slightest bit of negativity. They're very trigger happy. But that's what was missing from it. And you can't get that back. We had the match tonight. It was very good, but you can't get that back. That, to me, was the biggest disappointment about this entire thing. But I'm happy for Nigel because he went out there and he had the match that he wanted for a very long time. I'm glad he got that opportunity, and I think New York City was a great place for it to happen. Wembley, I think, would have been better in front of 50,000 people as opposed to 8. But New York City was a very appropriate place for these two to write their final chapter. Row, row, Roman Reigns gently down the stream. It's Bobby again. Row, row, Roman Reigns gently down the stream. Hey, Bobby, thank you, man, for the 22.
By the power of Valhalla, it's vintage coal talk.
Oh my God, it's George with a $59 super chat because he is celebrating his 59th birthday. Sharing some love with the Solomonster. Hey, George. George has been a fan for a long time. And a big wrestling fan, a good guy. So everybody, let's wish George a very happy birthday. Thank you, brother, for the super chat love. I appreciate the support more than you know. Thank you very much. We had Roderick Strong challenging Hook. Speaking of New York City, St. Mark's Place, right? Hook is very well acquainted with New York City. Maybe we can make Hook the mayor. Maybe we can vote for Hook to be the mayor of New York City, right? Hook will take care of things. You can make Taz his chief of staff. FTW title on the line. Matt Taven and Mike Bennett were outside in Roddy's corner. They got involved a whole bunch of times. The numbers got to be too much, which led to Roddy launching Hook into the ring post. That took us into a commercial break. Taven threw a chair into the ring as Roddy wedged it in the corner. That allowed Roddy to escape Red Rum and drive Hook into it. Again, it's FTW rules, so all of this is legal. Strong placed two chairs together. Hook, though, hit a judo throw through them. Roddy hit a fireman's carry gutbuster onto the chair and then a sick kick for a close 2 count of his own. Hook floated over an end of heartache attempt into Red Rum and he got Roddy to tap out. And Hook retains the FTW title. Pretty paint-by-number stuff as far as Hook matches go. Wasn't terribly long, wasn't terribly special. Yeah, by the standards of Roderick Strong, we've seen Roddy have much better matches than this. But again, pretty paint-by-number stuff. Now, when the match was over, Strong put his hand out. No, he's a heel. Put his hand out for a handshake. Hook accepted. The other members of the Kingdom, they gave him a nod out of respect as they left, so that was surprising. I was not expecting to see that. Tony Schiavone got up at ringside from the announce desk, and Hook went over to be interviewed by Tony Schiavone on the outside. And he brought up this being the 11th defense for Hook, and how the FTW Championship was created just a short drive from where they were tonight in Queens by his father. And for those who don't know, the FTW title, the first appearance of the FTW title when Taz first debuted it was May of 1998. And it was actually at an ECW event. It was at the Elks Lodge in Queens. And it was an event called It Ain't Seinfeld. Now, why would ECW have an event called It Ain't Seinfeld? Well, because the night of the show was the night of the Seinfeld series finale, which had just, I don't have the number in front of me, but it did a ridiculous audience on NBC. It was probably like fucking 60 million people tuned in to see the Seinfeld finale. I don't know how many people were tuned into that show because Seinfeld was just a phenomenon back then. But anyway, that was the name of the show. That was the first appearance of the FTW title. So Hook said, all good things come to an end. And he thanked everybody that competed for the championship, all the fans who supported the championship. But from this moment on, the FTW title is officially retired. The FTW title is no more, and I do believe that, personally, I don't know if you might disagree, but I believe that warrants a yes chant. Finally, he then presented the title to his dad, who got up from the announce desk and went over and hugged his boy, and Taz had just tears in his eyes. He was wiping away the tears. So it was a nice moment here with father and son. Only a few miles from where the title was born. Thankfully, though, that marks the end of the FTW title once and for all. It's the right move. It's something you've heard me call for this now for months, okay? If you listen to these reviews, this is nothing new. I've been calling for this now for a while. I've been calling for it really since All In. Because All In, when Hook had that great moment with he and his father where they, his father was outside the ring, Hook was inside the ring. But they applied those stereo transmissions at the same time, and they got a big pot from all the people at Wembley Stadium, and Hook retained, and I thought, man, that right there would be the perfect blow-off to the FTW Championship, retire the title. It doesn't get any better than that. He got to share that moment with his dad, who created the title. What a great moment. And Hook can now move on to potentially bigger things. And then he just kept defending the title. But evidently it was because they wanted to retire the title in New York City, where the championship was born. And I'm okay with that. Because in the end, we got to the place where we needed to be. Continuing to defend the FTW title, while I'm sure he thought it would be a cool thing, because look, I'm sure he likes to pay homage to his father. I'm sure that's a very cool thing for Hook. It doesn't do him any good anymore. If they wanted to use the title as a tool to help establish him, they've done that already. The establishment phase is over. Now it's time for Hook to stand on his own 2 feet and try to move on to bigger things and try to set bigger goals for himself than the belt that his dad made that isn't even really an an AEW recognized title like the other ones are. It's time for him to move on. He can't move away from this and climb higher if all he's going to continue to do is defend the FTW Championship. So this was a necessary move. I'm glad that they did it, and it was a nice moment here at the end of this match. Row, row, Roman Reigns gently down the stream. Row, row, Roman Reigns gently down the stream. Hey, Alex, thank you for the $22 super chat. That is Hook's ceiling, says DP. We'll see. We'll see what his ceiling is in AEW. There was some talk many months ago that he had a contract coming up soon. That he might want to explore his options, but I have not heard anything about that since, so I don't know what his contract status is. Hook going to the PC, though, would be very interesting. Hook was red hot there for a while. And you knew it wasn't going to last. And even in the match here tonight with Roddy, you could tell he still is very inexperienced. You kind of forget how young he still is. He's not the youngest guy there, but he's still very young and rough around the edges. What his ceiling is, at his current experience level, it's probably not that high. I still think he needs some more seasoning. It might take some more time. Do I see Hook, though, as a TNT champion one day? If he sticks around, yeah, I do. Beyond that, it's hard to say. I don't look at Hook and think, okay, this is a future AEW World Champion. He's so far away from that. If that was to ever happen, and this company is so overloaded with talent right now that unless you're bouncing that world title around to different people every other month, you're not going to see Hook at that level of AEW World Champion. TNT Champion one day, though, yeah, I could see that. So far, so good up to this point, I thought, for Grand Slam. And then we had the AEW World Tag Team Championships on the line. We had the Young Bucks defending their titles against the team of Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher, who won a casino tag team gauntlet match to earn the shot. I thought that this was the best Young Bucks match in forever. There's just been something about their matches, at least going back to Dynasty. And a big part of it is that they didn't defend the titles for 4 months. So that kind of played a role. But for months now, the Young Bucks, it's not like they go out there and have bad matches, but they just go out there and there's just none of these matches that they've been having have really pulled me in as a viewer. It's just kind of there. There was nothing terribly fun. There was nothing terribly exciting about them. Tonight was the best Young Bucks match in a very, very long time, as far back as I can remember this year. And a big part of that was Will Ospreay was in the match. And to take nothing away from Kyle Fletcher and the Bucks, they were all great. All 4 men are great. But Will Ospreay, it's impossible for him to go out there and have a bad match. So when you hear me say, oh, this was an excellent match, and you see that Will Ospreay was involved, nobody is surprised by that. He elevates every match that he is a part of because he's a special performer. And he's super over with the crowd. So these 8,000 people that they had there in Arthur Ashe tonight were hot for this match. They were into this match in a major way, in a way that people haven't been, I feel like, these crowds with the Young Bucks in a very long time. Don Callis joined on commentary. He said that tonight will be the biggest night of his career. Spoiler, he lied. The action was fast and furious in this match, just nonstop. Ospreay signaled for a hidden blade after a standing sky twister press to Nick Jackson. Nick, though, dodged into a corkscrew kick. The Bucks hit the Swanton bounce back powerbomb spot for 2. Ospreay kipped up out of an EVP trigger attempt into a double Os cutter. Fletcher turned the Bucks inside out with a double clothesline. Nick Jackson countered a Liger bomb into a facebuster. Ospreay then flew in with a 450 splash. Nick then followed that with a destroyer to Ospreay, the impact of which knocked him back into a standing position, and before he could fall down, Ospreay fell forward and knocked him out with a hidden blade. And now we had all 4 men were down. This was just a wild sequence, and it had the entire crowd on its feet, giving these guys a standing ovation. The Bucks later dropped Kyle Fletcher with a spiked tombstone on the apron, and they looked to be content to take a count-out win. Kyle Fletcher looked like he might not make it back into the ring in time, but of course he did. Just barely made it back in. The Bucks tried a TK driver. Ospreay and Fletcher, though, both countered into simultaneous, I think it was Styles clashes to a big pop, but only got 2 out of it. Ospreay connected with Hidden Blade and a Stormbreaker, but Nick broke up the count. Ospreay signaled for the Tiger Driver, but Nick Jackson saved his brother with a super kick. Fletcher comes in with multiple Snapdragons. Matt Jackson meets him with a running Bulldog. Ospreay cuts off more bang for your buck. Nick Jackson looks to spring for a TK driver, but Ospreay flew in with a cutter, an Os cutter in midair. Coriolis connects. That's the Aussie Open finish. Matt Jackson, though, kicks out. Ospreay calls for Fletcher to end it. This is it. Let's go for the kill here, right? Let's go for the titles. And Ospreay hits, or they hit the corner brainbuster, which, of course, is the spot that softened up Gunther for his first loss on the main roster when he lost to Sami Zayn at WrestleMania, was the top rope brainbuster. But Nick Jackson barely broke up the pin. Saved his brother, saved his titles. Nick got sent outside with Ospreay. Fletcher flew out with a dive. Rick Knox, who of course is the referee for every Young Bucks match and is one of the biggest just goofball referees. The way that they book him in these matches is it's quite ridiculous. So of course he's in there. He goes to check on Nick. Don Callis gets up from commentary and he goes over to Kyle Fletcher. And he hands Kyle Fletcher the screwdriver, the dreaded screwdriver, not the drink, the actual screwdriver. Callis then goes over to the other side of the ring and he takes the referee and distracts him, which is not very hard to do. All you really need to do with Rick Knox is just shine one of those little laser lights, those laser pointers on the floor, and that's, Rick Knox is basically out of commission for the next 25 minutes. So while the referee is distracted, Fletcher is about to use the screwdriver. And he's raring back to use it, and Ospreay blocks him. He stops him from using the screwdriver. That results in Fletcher getting clobbered with one of the tag team belts by Nick Jackson, which of course Rick Knox did not see. And then the BTE trigger connects for the win, and the Young Bucks retain their titles. The announcers brought up that if Don Callis did not intervene here, very likely that his guys would have won the match. Very likely they would have walked out with those titles. This was an excellent match. They went kick out crazy down the stretch. I was not a fan of that at all. I thought that was I didn't like that. I don't want to say it didn't mess up the entire match. I still thought it was an excellent match, but it's just one of those things where there are matches where there are a lot of near falls, and it's okay because they kind of just hit that right number. And then you've got matches, and I've seen this in a lot of Will Ospreay matches. I've seen this in a lot of Young Bucks matches. They just go so crazy with it. You get to that point where they go 1, 2, 3, 4 kickouts too far. And it's just like, come on. Like, some of the shit they kick out of is ridiculous. And because you want that reaction where the crowd is like, oh my God, like you bring them to that crescendo. And then you just go 2 kickouts too many, to where you almost shake your head like, all right, like you had it. And then you just took it over that line. You went a little too far with it. So I wish they would have cut some of those out towards the end. It didn't take away from my enjoyment of the match though. Like I said, the best Young Bucks match I've seen in a very long time. Now, the story they told here, because there was a story that played out here. The story they told, and the announcers flat out told it, was that Don Callis got involved. Had he not done so, it's very likely that Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher right now would be the AEW World Tag Team Champions. But that ignores the other story here, which is that Will Ospreay stopped Kyle Fletcher from using the screwdriver. Had he let his partner cheat and use the screwdriver, they would almost guaranteed be the new AEW World Tag Team Champions. So there's multiple different ways that they can go with this story now going forward. Whether they blame Callis, and that's Kyle Fletcher's way of separating from Don Callis, or they go the opposite way, which is that they hold Will Ospreay responsible, and they turn their back on him. Because they blame him and say, look, had you not gone soft, and if you would have let Kyle do what I told him to do, and what he was ready to do, you guys would be champions right now. Now, of course, you've got your title, but poor Kyle over here now, he has no title. Because Will Ospreay is already the international champion. He doesn't need to be tag team champion. This means more to Kyle Fletcher, because he's the one who has no gold right now. So you could take that story in that direction if you want. Now, Will Ospreay is wrestling Ricochet next week on the 5-year anniversary show. And I think the best way to go with it, considering how quickly they're throwing this match out there, what I would do, I would have those two wrestle to a no contest of some kind. Now, we saw Will Ospreay go to nearly a time limit draw. It was like 2 seconds shy of a time limit draw with MJF in July. And so doing another time limit draw so soon after that one, I don't know that I would do that. I certainly wouldn't do a 60-minute one. And if there was a 60-minute time limit for that international title match, I'm assuming that this match next week will also have a 60-minute time limit. Then you can't do another one. You can't have another 60-minute match. I wouldn't do that. You know, your 5-year anniversary show, you do want to spread the wealth. I think you want to have a fuller card than that would allow. Although they've only announced 2 things next week. Right? So right now, as of this moment, we are only aware of 2 matches on the show next week. So it's not like there isn't plenty of room for them to go another 60 if they wanted to. But whatever they do, I would not have a decisive finish in this match next week. I don't think you give that away next week. I mean, you're already going to it a month into Ricochet's run. Don't give them a clean finish. Will Ospreay's not going to lose the international title. He just won it back. And Ricochet just came into the company. You're going to put a belt on him already? So the best thing to do here is not have any clean finish at all. And maybe you shoot that angle next week. If they are going to turn their backs on Will Ospreay, you do it next week. Doesn't even have to be the cause of the no contest, but it could be after the match. But I think if it were me, I personally like the idea of Kyle Fletcher and Takeshita and Callis, all of them turning on Will Ospreay and blaming him when they really should put the blame on Callis, but they put it on Will instead. Kyle Fletcher could use that harder edge, I think. The other reason I like the idea is what you can do coming out of this is have Ospreay and Ricochet as allies. They could be partners, not like as a permanent team, but they could be on the same side together. They could be allied. And now you can have Ricochet wrestling Kyle Fletcher. You could have Ricochet having a match with Konosuke Takeshita. Put that separation for a while between Ospreay and Ricochet. Eventually you can circle back to it. You do a rematch sometime early next year with them. Maybe at that point, Ricochet beats Ospreay. Maybe. I mean, if it were me, I would be going into 2025 with the idea that by the time we get to Texas for All In, I'm putting the World Championship on Will Ospreay. They didn't do it this year. I would do it next year. So I don't even know that I would have him lose to someone like Ricochet, but he's going to have to lose the title at some point. But you create that separation. Now they're on the same side. They're not enemies now. They have a common cause to fight for. And eventually you circle back to it. That's how I would book it. Also, keep in mind that we have not seen Mark Davis in a very long time. I feel like it's been almost a year. You know, the other half of Aussie Open here, Kyle Fletcher's tag team partner, he could be back soon. And if he's going to come back soon, maybe all the more reason to go ahead and, you know, do a split between Ospreay and Fletcher. Fletcher and Davis maybe reunite. We get Aussie Open back together. They're heels. So again, that there's a few different ways you can go with this, but I feel like that's the direction that I would favor. far as that goes. But I definitely would not give away a clean finish with Ricochet and Ospreay next week. I'm not doing it. I just think that would be foolish.
I am the Lord.
Shut the fuck up. Fuck that tree. Joey, I'm telling you, man. Joey says Will Ospreay and Ricochet as tag team champions. You could do that. You could do that. You can have them win the tag team titles at some point. But I mean, think about what I'm saying, though. And especially for the people who don't like the fact that Tony Khan is giving this match away so soon. It will allow you to really build out their story a little bit more. Right? Because if they're allied for a while, and maybe they do win the tag team titles, eventually that will come to an end. And you'll have a fuller story just in AEW alone. Forget whatever they did before they came into AEW. You'll be able to flesh that story out a little bit more, so when they finally end up back in the ring at Revolution or at Double or Nothing or Dynasty or, you know, whatever show it might be in the first half of next year, I feel like it will be a bigger deal, even than it is next week, you know, to the people who think it's a big deal. Some people may not think it's a big deal. But for the people who maybe don't think that it's that big of a deal that these two guys are wrestling next week, again, you flesh that story out a little bit more, take it down a different path for a while, come back to it, and at that point, it might feel like a bigger deal. I don't see the downside to it. I really don't. Will Ospreay is going to be their guy. Ricochet just signed. He signed a multi-year deal. He's not going anywhere. He's not. Like, you don't have to give away the store. You really don't. Tony Schiavone was on stage, and he brought out New York City's own Prince Nana. No Swerve Strickland, but the reason that Prince Nana was here was to give us an update on the condition of Swerve Strickland, who we have not seen since All Out, when he had his cage match with Hangman Page. He said, mentally, there's nothing that can stop the most dangerous man in AEW. But physically, he is not cleared to come back. But he's fighting hard every single day for each and every one of the fans. Then he was interrupted by a voice. A very familiar voice, a voice we have not heard on TV in a while. It was the voice of MVP, who came walking out. He was dressed in a suit. He had his cane with him that we saw him last with in WWE. So he walks out, got a nice reaction from the crowd, who sounded surprised to see him. He walked out there and he agreed that Swerve is the most dangerous man in AEW. Not only that, but he thinks Swerve is the most phenomenal talent to ever set foot in an AEW ring. 8 months without being pinned or submitted. He's got wins over Samoa Joe, Roderick Strong, Christian Cage, Will Ospreay. And he was watching, he says. He saw all of it. But he also saw Swerve lose the AEW World Championship at All In. And he also saw Swerve's childhood home burn to the ground. So his question is, why are these people still walking around? Why is the man who beat Swerve still walking around? Why is the man who burned his home to the ground? Why do I hear Bree Mode in my ear? Stan the man. I hope you are having a great day as well, Stan. Thank you very much. See, Stan just says he wants to make sure I'm having a great day. I'm having a good day, and I hope you are having a great day. Oh my guys, it just sends a chill up my spine every time I hear it. But he wants to know, why are these men still walking around after what they have done to Swerve? He sees that as more of a failure, not of Swerve, but of his management, who he says is busy shucking and jiving. So when Swerve is ready to be taken seriously again, please give him MVP. He says, please give him my business card. He hands the business card to Prince Nana. Let him know that I will be ready to talk. And with that, he also said that he will be ready to talk business, with an emphasis on the word business. And he walked off And Prince Nana had a very conflicted look on his face. So it is happening. Oh, it's happening, all right. The Hurt Business, or the Hurt Syndicate. That's probably the name they'll end up using. They can say the word business here, but that can't be the name of the group. They'll probably be the Hurt Syndicate. But they're on the way. They're on the way. MVP is in. Bobby Lashley is likely now on his way in. Shelton Benjamin is likely on his way in. Cedric Alexander is not on his way in because he has not that long ago re-signed, I believe, with WWE. So Cedric will not be joining them. And look, you know, Lashley and Shelton, who are super talented, they would be two solid additions to the roster. You can't say that they would be a bad addition to the roster. Shelton Benjamin is not going to be a bad addition to anyone's roster, and neither is Bobby Lashley. Do they need two 50-year-old ex-WWE guys right now? Do they need them? No. No, they don't. They don't need them. There's a lot of things that Tony Khan probably doesn't need. Doesn't mean that he's not going to do it. Doesn't mean he's not going to bring them in, try to find a role for them. And I think if he finds the right role for them, I think it could be fun. We talked about the Hurt Business run in WWE. It was fun while it lasted. I think it did help elevate the guys in that group. The main guy it was intended to elevate, though, was Bobby Lashley. It served its purpose. That's why Vince lost interest and said, okay, it accomplished its goal. He doesn't give a shit about Shelton Benjamin. He doesn't give a shit about Cedric Alexander. You think he cares? Please. What's that famous story about him having a meeting in the back with talent? Somebody stood up. I can never remember who it was. And, him telling, that's a great question, Shelton. Only it wasn't Shelton. It was somebody else. You think he gives a fuck about Shelton Benjamin? The whole point of the Hurt Business was to get Bobby Lashley in a position where he would be the WWE champion. And guess what? He was. He was. And then that was the end of the Hurt Business. So it's been a few years. Some people have been clamoring. MVP, we know, has been clamoring for a return of the Hurt Business. And of course he would be, because what has MVP been doing since the Hurt Business went down? Nothing. He was repping Omos for a while. Triple H doesn't give a fuck about Omos. That's why we don't see him on TV. So we haven't seen MVP on TV in years. So of course he wants to bring back the Hurt Business, because that was really the peak for him since he came back. Was him and the Hurt Business. That was his peak run there. And they want to try to recreate that here in AEW. And Tony Khan obviously feels the same way, and he's going to give them the opportunity to go out and do that, even though he's got other talent that he's not using that's just sitting at home right now that should be used, frankly. But that's always been a problem. But the bottom line is, I think it could be fun, and I think Bobby Lashley certainly deserves to get a run somewhere. If it's not going to be WWE, then I'm all for seeing him get a run here in AEW. MVP was really underused the last couple of years. And I think we saw here in this segment how effective he can be in the managerial role. He came out and he put over Swerve Strickland in a major way. So we know the value that he brings as someone's mouthpiece, as someone's manager. I don't really have any interest in seeing him back in the ring. I just don't. But I think in this role is where he shines. And WWE should have done a better job of taking advantage of that while they had him under contract, because they just did nothing. They just weren't using him. It was just like, okay, I don't mind not seeing Omos on TV every week, but like, you can find something else for MVP to do. You know, he had the VIP lounge for a while. But and maybe I'm just a sucker for old school wrestling managers, because I grew up, I feel like, in the golden era of wrestling managers. I feel like I was totally spoiled as a young wrestling. I mean, you had everybody back then, man. You had, like, Fred Blassie was on the tail end. Actually, he was just out of it when I really started watching. But yeah, you had him, and you had Albano, and you had Jimmy Hart, and you had Bobby Heenan, and you had Slick, and you had Sherry. On and on and on. And there were a bunch of other ones too. Oliver Humperdinck and Mr. Fuji. But just like the golden age of wrestling managers. And you see the value that they can bring, especially to people who maybe talking is not their strong suit. Maybe going out there and talking about themselves and representing themselves is not their strong suit. That's where a manager could really have great value. And it became a lost art for the longest time. And in recent years, it's kind of made a comeback. And I like Prince Nana with Swerve Strickland. I don't want to see them break up that duo. So I don't see Swerve, I hope not, ditching Prince Nana and then going and playing second fiddle, let's say, to Bobby Lashley, if Lashley comes into the company. So this, to me, as I'm watching this, it just felt more like it was setting up a possible program for Swerve when he comes back. It's intriguing to see where they might take this. And when Swerve is actually going to be back. They're going to be in his home state for a pay-per-view in a couple of weeks. You know, hard to imagine that he wouldn't be on that show, but we only got one. Is it one more Dynamite or two? We have two more. Two more Dynamites before Wrestle Dream. We have the 5-year anniversary next week, and then the following Tuesday is when Dynamite is head-to-head with NXT. And then it's Wrestle Dream. So we'll see if we get Swerve back in time for Wrestle Dream. I'm not even sure what the match would be, even if he was back in time for the pay-per-view. I do not want to see them bring back Swerve and throw him right back in the ring with Hangman Page. That would be the worst thing they could do. That would be the dumbest thing for Tony Khan to do. You need to have separation now for a while between them. I don't want to see those two back in the ring until and unless Hangman is the AEW World Champion. And Swerve has worked his way back up into title contention, and to get the belt back, he has to beat Hangman. That's the only time I want to see them back in the ring together. You can't just go right back to that. So what they have Swerve doing, I don't know, but I think we may have gotten a glimpse of it here on the show tonight.
I love you, Solo. You are my tribal chief.
El Masse, I love you too, El Masse. Thank you for the $15 super chat drop. I love you, Solo. I'm feeling the love. Oh, the great Sonny Ono, of course. How could I forget? The great Sonny Ono, I could picture him now with his camera, snapping photos. Tell you, man, there were a lot of great managers back in the day. Managers were like one of the most fun parts of wrestling, and then the evil Irish asshole took it away for so long. Fuck him, by the way. Mariah May, one-on-one with Yuka Sakazaki for the AEW Women's World Championship. Sakazaki, she flew off the top with a dive before Mariah could even get into the ring and took her out on the floor. Mariah tried for Mayday. Sakazaki rolled through into a backslide for what looked like a 3 count. This was later in the match. And Mariah didn't really get her shoulder up. Aubrey Edwards, though, didn't make the count. Instead, we got a rolling pin attempt for a series of 2 counts. Mariah didn't get much of a spinning sit-out slam when she tried for it, because Yuka fired a thrust kick into a Northern Lights bomb. Yuka wanted the magical girl splash. Mariah got her knees up, though, on the landing and followed with a knee strike, and then Storm Zero for the win. After the match, just as Mariah was about to level Yuka with her women's title, Willow Nightingale runs out and makes the save. And after a stare down between Mariah and Willow, Mina Shirakawa's music hits. And out walks Mina onto the stage, and oh my goodness. She was wearing black leather tonight. See, this woman knows what she's doing. She's not stupid. She knows what she's doing. Happy birthday, by the way. Belated birthday to Mina, for those who don't know. Mina, I saw this on social media the other day. Mina celebrated her, I think it was her 36th birthday the other day, but happy birthday to Mina Shirakawa. Very happy to see Mina back on TV. So she walked out on stage, and Mariah, because of this distraction, this brief distraction, Willow turned her attention to the aisleway. It allowed Mariah to waffle her right in the back of the head with the women's title. So Mariah then ran down the aisle into the arms of a very confused Mina Shirakawa, and Mina seemed to be disappointed by Mariah's actions. Yuka ran down the aisle towards Mariah, and she was right there, and then she just stopped for, I don't know why, she just stopped, and she stared at Mina instead. We had a little staring action going on here with Mina and Yuka. This was the, outside of 37, is she 37? It's either 36 or 37. Either way, she looks fantastic. Happy birthday to me. This was the low point of the show. I mean, match-wise, this was the low point of the show, though, compared to everything else that we got. And largely because while the people in the building did seem to like Yuka, like when she first came out and they played her music, she got a nice little pop. So I think they liked her, but they're not invested in her challenging for the women's championship. She's not a consistent, presence on television. And she isn't someone who everybody is going to be familiar with. She's not on Dynamite all the time. So the lack of investment in her as challenger, and the lack, let's be honest here, the lack of anyone really believing that she had a shot at winning this championship, and that didn't help. Those two things did not help. Crowd was kind of dead for this. Can't really blame them. But I like seeing Willow out there because I like Willow. I think Willow Nightingale is great. If we get Willow against Mariah at some point, I'm all for that. But I love seeing Mina back. And there is a story there. There's a history between them. And so there's definitely a storyline playing out between Mina and Mariah that will lead to a championship match. I would expect it to be a Wrestle Dream. I don't know that this friendship is going to last much longer on TV. Look, we saw what Mariah did to Toni Storm. Okay, so you can't trust this woman as being your best friend. What she did to Toni Storm is one of the greatest things in the history of Dynamite. She will not hesitate to do the same thing to Mina Shirakawa, I assure you.
I am the Lord.
Shut the fuck up. Fuck that tree. Oz and Glorious, thank you for the 12. The Learning Tree. We were spared the Learning Tree tonight on the television show. Not this show, but the TV show. Chris Jericho is going to be on Collision this Saturday. At least I know what not to watch. But the Learning Tree is always welcome here on the stream. So Oz and Glorious, thank you, brother. I'm going to be reading all your messages here in just a few minutes, so don't go nowhere. They closed the show because we're already at the main event here. They closed the show with Jon Moxley against Darby Allin with Darby's AEW World Championship shot on the line that he earned by winning the Royal Rampage, what feels like a lifetime ago. Moxley was just killing this guy for really much of the match, but at the beginning of the match, he was just killing Darby, and he busted Darby's mouth open. So he had blood pouring out of his mouth. This was in the opening 2 minutes, by the way. And we had blood, and it did not belong to Jon Moxley. There was an Irish whip across the ring where Moxley sent Darby into the far side, and he went soaring through the ropes. But like, as he barreled towards the corner, it was like he went through the ropes and hit the post and spun and then hit the steps on the way down and hit the floor. And it's just like, I mean, the worst possible impact you could imagine, to the point where they showed a replay of it. So think about that. They showed a replay of an Irish whip. Okay, that tells you how vicious this was. Darby, though, fought back. He had a coffin drop to the floor. Darby went to go set up Moxley on a chair outside. Marina Shafir stood in his way. And that little delay allowed Moxley to hit a body slam on the apron. Moxley took the referee as Shafir got some cheap shots in. Darby later on exposed one of the top turnbuckles in the ring. We'll get back to that. Coffin splash from Darby, who applied a Fujiwara armbar. Moxley, though, rolled out, transitioned into a guillotine. Shafir helped Moxley remove the protective mats outside the ring. Moxley was screaming, the Darby asked for this, you asked for this. Actually, Moxley asked for this, if we're being honest. He's the one who asked for this in the first place. So Moxley wanted a Death Rider on the floor. Allin, though, floated over, and Moxley ran into the ring steps. So Darby went into the ring, and he tried for a suicide dive. Tried being the operative word. Well, I mean, technically, I guess he did dive, but he didn't hit his intended target. Jon Moxley was the intended target. The target that he actually hit was the floor. Now, remember, they had pulled up the protective mats, and it looked like there were some other kind of mats underneath, but even still, I'm sure it didn't feel very good when Darby went splat on the floor outside. Back inside, Moxley ran into the exposed turnbuckle from earlier in the match, and Darby schoolboyed him for 2. Darby tried a coffin drop, but jumped into the waiting arms of Jon Moxley, who sank in the rear naked choke and then transitioned into the bulldog choke. Darby was visibly fading. His eyes were open, but he had that dead look in his eyes. So he was fading, and I thought he might go out here and this was going to be where they were going to end the match. Instead, Darby begins to smile, and he begins spitting up all over. I mean, it was just fucking gross. He's got fucking gobs of spit hanging out of his mouth. I'm like, ugh, come on now. So he crawls over to the bottom rope and gets the rope break. A little while later, Darby wanted a superplex. Marina Shafir, though, jumped up on the apron for the distraction. That delay was enough for Moxley to reverse into an avalanche Death Rider, and he spiked him right on top of his head on the way down. And that's all she wrote, folks. Jon Moxley pins Darby Allin, and guess what? Darby is shit out of luck. And Jon Moxley now has an AEW World Championship match that is now official for WrestleDream. So he is now the number 1 contender for the world title. After the match, doctors ran out to go check on Darby. As that was going on, a hooded figure ran into the ring. And then we saw that it was no hooded figure. It was no ordinary man. It was the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, who had a necktie. And he began choking Jon Moxley with the necktie. I like the callback. At least this time he doesn't have to worry about being fired and losing his job. So he's choking this man out. Shafir tried to stop him and couldn't. Pac goes out there and Claudio runs out there. They finally pulled him off. Here comes Private Party and Commander. I wish it was Commando. Private Party and Commander. They run down to the ring to make the save. And guess what, folks? Guess what happened? They were easily dispatched, just like they were last week. Like scrubs. They come out to make the save and they get their asses beat. So Danielson was about to hit a Busaiku knee on Moxley. Claudio, though, pulled him out of the ring to safety. So now they're fleeing through the crowd. Danielson asked for a microphone. And he says, if Jon Moxley wants a war, then I declare war. And Danielson said, come WrestleDream, he's going to kick Moxley's fucking head in, which they censored. And that was how the show went off the air. The challenge was accepted. The match is official. And at WrestleDream in Tacoma, Washington, it will be Bryan Danielson in his home state defending the World Championship against Jon Moxley. Darby took his usual punishment here. He took his usual sick bumps. Although these actually felt tame compared to what we've seen from him this year. I mean, what the abuse he put himself through, the bump through the glass outside in the match with Sting's retirement. I mean, it's just, I think in terms of just idiotic, dumb, dangerous, stupid bumps, I don't think this year that one for Darby is going to be topped. It only would have been topped, I think, by the stupidity of him climbing Mount Everest, and then the broken foot saved him from doing that, but he's going to climb next year, so. He's going to climb that damn mountain, he's already said. Nothing is going to stop him. So this was tame by Darby Allin standards, even though he took some hellacious bumps here. But it was mostly Darby working from underneath, He was just being bounced around like a rubber ball, and then he would make various comebacks throughout the match. But again, I go back to what I said at the beginning of this review. Darby Allin looks like a damn fool. I'm sorry. You could talk about babyface pride, and never ducking a challenge and all that, but he earned a world championship match that he had originally for tonight. And even if Bryan Danielson was not going to be medically cleared and they thought he wasn't going to be medically cleared, nobody said he had to put that championship on the line against Jon Moxley, but damn it, Darby is not one to say no to a challenge. Well, who's the fool now? He just looks like an idiot for losing what would have been for him a guaranteed championship match, if not tonight, in the main event of the next pay-per-view in his home state. Now I'm not even sure he'll be on the show. He doesn't have any obvious role on that Wrestle Dream show. Doesn't mean that he won't, but right now he has none. Now, as far as this show tonight, they had originally advertised an open challenge for the trios titles, where Claudio, Pac, and Yuta were going to defend those titles against someone. That did not happen. Instead, they just went and they put a graphic up at the end of the show, and they just announced that on Collision, which I'm sure the match has already been taped, it's going to be Claudio, Pac, and Yuta defending against Private Party and Commander. Now, I'm assuming they did that in part because they decided to have an open challenge for the TNT title. So Jack Perry will be defending the TNT title on Saturday in an open challenge. And I'm not going to give away any spoilers on who accepted the open challenge, but there's been a lot of crazy, wild rumors going around about who it might be or returning talents or whatever. Don't get your hopes up. That's all I'll say. Don't get your hopes up. But maybe they changed their mind because they wanted to do another open challenge. I don't know. I was left just wondering, who the fuck wants to see Commander and Private Party challenging for the trios titles after the way that they've been booked over the last 2 weeks? Last week, they got their asses kicked. Commander literally got gorilla pressed into the fucking crowd. Mark Quinn, I think it was, or maybe it was Isaiah. One of them, I forget which one. It might have been Mark Quinn. Got his hand smashed with a hammer. Okay, so they got their asses kicked. They come out here tonight to make the save. What happens? They get laid out again. Who wants to see these guys challenging for championships? Who could possibly care about this match? You can't book them strong for 1 week. Let them go over on the other guys in a strong way. Put them down with some big, double team move or something, anything. What they actually did here wasn't much. So I can't say that I'm terribly excited to see them challenging for the trios titles. I'm sorry. But that match is going to happen on Collision on Saturday. Also on Collision, Okada is going to wrestle Sammy Guevara. It's an eliminator match. If Sammy beats him, Sammy will get a shot at the Continental title on Dynamite next week on the 5-year anniversary show. But that would mean that Sammy Guevara would have to beat Okada, who has not been beaten since he signed with AEW. That would be very dumb. And it should be Continental rules, even though the title's not on the line, which means no interference or anything like that. So it should be just a straight-up one-on-one match, fair and square. It's got to be an Okada win. You could take Sammy Guevara, who lost to Ricochet on TV a few weeks ago, and presently is wrestling in Ring of Honor as one of the Ring of Honor, one half of the tag team champions, and have him be the first person to hand Okada a loss? I don't think so. Hangman Page against Jeff Jarrett. It will be a lumberjack strap match, because a lumberjack match or a strap match, it just wasn't enough. We have to combine the two. So it will be a lumberjack strap match. I thought that was going to actually happen tonight on the show, but it's happening on Saturday. Chris Jericho, Big Bill, and Brian Keith are going to take on the Conglomerate, and Jamie Hayter is wrestling Saraya in a Saraya's Rules match. Saraya's Rules match is very simple. The rules don't apply to Saraya, only to Jamie Hayter. Jamie Hayter has to, adhere to the 10 count. She has to follow the rules, break by 5, all that stuff. Saraya, though, can do anything she wants. So those are the matches coming up on Saturday. Now, next week is the 5-year anniversary of Dynamite. Will Ospreay is wrestling Ricochet for the international title. Britt Baker returns. She will be going one-on-one with Serena Deeb. Be aware, I will not be here next week. So there will be no Dynamite review next week. We will be back in 2 weeks. The following Wednesday. Wait, hold on a second, though. Hold on. There is no Dynamite the following Wednesday. I will keep you guys informed about what my plans are as far as the following week. I was going to possibly watch NXT and Dynamite simultaneously and do a double review like I did last year, but I wanted to kill myself after I did that. It's not fun. So I might not do that. So I will have to decide which show I will be going live to review on October 8th. I don't know. Randy Orton is wrestling Javon Evans that night. We'll wait and see. But there will be no Dynamite review next week, so just be aware of that. Here's the poll for Grand Slam. What did you think of the Grand Slam episode of Dynamite? 64% thumbs up, 35.7% thumbs down. Not the best score, but overall, it is a positive score. It is a thumbs up. I thought it was a thumbs up show. It definitely was not a thumbs down show tonight. Can't give this show a thumbs down. I thought on the whole, it was actually very good. We got some really good matches on this show. There were some stories that were forwarded. Enjoyed seeing MVP. Curious to see where that story is going to go. So there wasn't a lot of frills on the show tonight. There weren't a lot of backstage segments. There were one or two. It was mostly just matches, boom, 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 like you would see on a pay-per-view. But I thought overall it was very good. It was not their best Grand Slam show, but definitely not a thumbs down. Let's take a look at your Super Chats. We got a bunch of them here to go through. We'll read your messages here. See what's going on. Yeah, so just an update on the schedule for next week. So there won't be a Dynamite review on Wednesday, and there's no TNT next week either. But I am going to be live next Monday and Tuesday and Friday. So the Raw review will be as normal. I'm going to review NXT, which is that first CW show, Julia's first match. Well, not her first match, but her title match with Roxanne. I will be live after that show. And then for SmackDown that Friday, and then Bad Blood is that Saturday. It's my birthday weekend. So that's what we are covering for next week, so just be aware of that. Where are we on the likes? I need a likes update in the live chat. How close are we to the goal? Are we doing Be the Booker tonight or not? Where are we at? 342. So I guess the answer is no. Probably not. But let's see where we are here when we get to the end of the Super Chats. Hey, Sidro. Oh, boy. Our pal Sidro. Our pal Sidro is with us. And he is starting us off. Last night, I dreamt I was a muffler. I woke up exhausted. Also, before the crowbar was invented, crows had to drunk at home.
You suck.
Sidro, these crowds are getting rowdier. These crowds are going to get violent soon. Oh my God, he's got another one. Did you hear about the archaeologist who got fired? His career was in ruins. Also, why did Darth Vader go to the dermatologist? He had star warts.
You suck.
Oh my goodness. Brother Fluff Salisbury, save me. He says, do you think that Darby's girlfriend knows that he stole her coat and has been wearing it on TV? It looked like a bathrobe the first time I saw it. Are we sure it's not a bathrobe? That it's an actual jacket? 'Cause it looks like a bathrobe to me. Jerome Eugenio. Love them or hate them, the Bucks are still the best tag team out there. They are certainly still one of the best tag teams in the world. I just have not been terribly excited by some of the matches they've been having over the last few months. And it didn't help that we went so many months without there being a tag team title match. Prince Vegeta. Moxley has beaten Danielson in every match they have been in AEW. Even tagging together, Bryan takes the losing fall. What a fucking injustice. Well, maybe it's been building to this point where at Wrestle Dream he'll finally, get that win. I don't know. I'm trying to look positively on this and see a silver lining and all that. Hey, Jake Jones dropped a $50 super chat before I went live. An early bomb from the true best tag team of all time. I think it's too early for Danielson to drop the belt, but when and who should he drop it to? When do you think Darby should get the belt, since now he's been kind of screwed out of his chance? I don't think Darby's going to get the belt for a while. I wouldn't put it on him for a while, especially if he really is serious about climbing this mountain next year, and he's got his eye on that, and he may need some time off for that. I'm not putting my world title on him. It's too much of a risk. I'm not putting my world title on him. I would put it on Hangman Page. I think Hangman should be the one to beat Bryan for the belt. Hey, Bobby's World dropped a $100 bomb. Bombs away. I love you, Solo. Wait, that's not the right super chat. Oh well, take my money anyway. Well, I'm glad you sent in the wrong one. Thank you, Bobby. Drop it to Lashley? No. Retro KOH. At this point, Ryback and Rikishi should start a new podcast. Call it Feed Me Shit. Let them both gripe together about Triple H and WWE. Is Ryback still complaining that he is shadow banned on social media? Is he still crying into the abyss about that? Shouting into the void? We have got Peteroid 11. I don't know, man. I don't know. Mayor Adams, man. He's got a few days to turn himself in. From what I understand, he's got a few days to turn himself in on these charges that are pending. I'm very curious tomorrow to see what these charges are against our esteemed mayor. I don't know what's going on. Bobby's World. Mantar in a 60-minute Iron Man match is the rodent control I never knew I needed. Play that match at the rats and roaches will run screaming from your home. They'll never come back either. I may have to try that. I've had issues with both this summer. Hey, George, again. Happy birthday, brother. Happy 59th birthday to George Seckman, who dropped a $59 super chat. I hope you had a great birthday, my friend. Alex with the 22, Brother Solo, with Roman appearing on almost every SmackDown episode from October 11th through November 22nd. Do you see this as a sign that War Games will be even more pivotal this year compared to last year? I don't know about more pivotal, but he's got to be here if he's going to be in War Games. So whether it's Bloodline against Bloodline or Roman, Cody, Randy, and KO against the Bloodline, Roman will be in War Games. So we need him on TV. We need him to be around. If you're going to be in the match, then you need to be on TV to promote the match. So I'm happy that they've added more dates. It's going to be the most that he's worked in many, many months. Luis, F that tree. And where is Jericho? Who gives a shit? Jericho was backstage. They taped his match for Collision tonight, so that's where Jericho was. Stan the Man. Howdy, Solomonster. Hope you are having a good day. Thank you, Stan. I hope you are too. Stan the Man. There's El Masse. El Masse with the $15 super chat. Whenever I feel my job is overwhelming, I just imagine the guy who had to edit Meltzer's segments during the McMahon documentary, and I don't feel bad anymore. I've only watched the first episode, so I've already seen Dave on my screen. I don't know how much more he's going to be on my screen. I'm sure in episode 2 he will be, because he was on the Donahue show, which I'm sure they cover. But yeah, I saw Dave on screen in the first episode. I said, there he is. I'm sure when Vince saw the early cut, he was very happy to see Meltzer's face on there. Anthony went to Grand Slam and I am still here. Collision is taping. The show is going to end after midnight. Why? When did Collision get boring? Collision got boring a long time ago. That's why I stopped, paying too much attention to it. I watch parts of it that look interesting to me, but it's not a must-see show. It hasn't been for a very long time. And see, that's the problem I had when I went to Grand Slam. I went to Grand Slam, dude, we had Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs. These guys were out there having a kick-ass match. It was almost 1 o'clock in the morning. I mean, people were standing up watching so that when the bell rang, they could just get the hell out of there. It's ridiculous. Literally, their match was ending. It was like 12:48 a.m. It's just like, it's just ridiculous. The Juliet 316. Thoughts on Bleacher Report ending? I think I made my thoughts on that very clear at the beginning of this stream. I don't think I could be any more clear than I was at the beginning of this stream. Oz and Glory is doing birthday stuff with the family, so I can't hang live, but wanted to pop in and say Dynamite was a good time. Much love, Solomonster. Thanks, guys. Well, I'm assuming if it's your birthday, happy birthday. We got a lot of birthdays. I'm almost there myself, but not quite. And Sidro. Sidro says, what do you call a couple of chimpanzees sharing an Amazon account? Primates. Also, name the kind of tree that you can hold in your hand. A palm tree.
You suck.
It's always that guy at the end. Ooh, you suck. Sidro, you're not winning him over. You're not winning them over. All right, well, where are we? We are at 387. Well, we fell short. Well, we shall try again for our goal on Friday night. Leave it to AEW for us to fail in our goal. We've been firing on all cylinders now the last week and a half, and then we hit Dynamite, and it's like, boom, we hit a wall. But nonetheless, I thought that this was a fun show tonight. And I will be back with you live for the post show for SmackDown. That'll be on Friday night. That is the next time that I will be live here on this channel with all of you. And episode 881 of The Sound Off is coming up this weekend. As I mentioned, I've only watched the first episode so far of the Vince McMahon documentary. The day got away from me. I just had too much work to do. I'm hoping by Friday I can finish it, and then I'll figure out, kind of the when and where as far as recording a review. I would prefer to review it on the Sound Off this weekend. I don't know if that's going to be possible, but I will review it once I'm done. So you will get my thoughts on that only when I am done with the documentary, but I promise I will do a recap on that So that is something to look forward to. Here's Retro. What is your favorite Demolition match ever? Heart Foundation and Demolition. 2 out of 3 falls at SummerSlam 1990.
I'm the Lord.
Shut the fuck up. SummerSlam 90. Fuck that tree. Uffman Entertainment bought my Full Gear tickets tonight. I know it's very away, but what matches could be on that show? Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm not even sure Bryan Danielson will be wrestling on that show. You know, his full-time career may already be over by that point. If he loses at Wrestle Dream, he may not even be champion anymore. So if he's not the champion, if Jon Moxley is the champion, then who does Jon Moxley defend against? Could it be Darby? Does Darby get a rematch and actually beat him this time? Maybe. I still would prefer to see that title end up on Hangman. I think Hangman is doing great work right now. I think it's the natural progression for his character to end up winning that world championship. He's so obsessed with getting it back. It just seems to make sense to me, but Moxley and the BCC and what they're doing with them seems to be the big angle right now, and where that is headed will probably dictate what the world title match is going to be on that show. Same thing with Ospreay. You know, if the Callis family turns against him, do we get Will Ospreay defending the international title against Kyle Fletcher? You know, I don't know. I honestly don't know, because we still have Wrestle Dream to go first. So as I look ahead to what the matches could be on that show, is Kenny going to be back by that point? I don't know that Omega's going to be back by then, but maybe. Possible. So I don't know. It's a hard show to predict. I mean, it's still a ways off. It's not that far away, but I don't know. That's a hard show for me to predict. But I see that we have magically shot up here to 413 likes. Look at that. It's like magic. How did that happen? I guess that means that we have to be the booker. Or we could just skip it and wait until Friday. Yeah, I think we'll do that. All right, I'll see you guys out. I'm just kidding.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the booker.
I'm just pulling your leg. No need to get upset. Say his name. Say his name? You should be saying Joe Hendry's name. I'm going to be calling my first Joe Hendry match at the House of Glory show on Sunday, 6 p.m., Triller TV. It's going to be Joe Hendry against Joey Janela. Right now, we're starting to be the booker out with some Chronic. You guys want some Chronic? You got some Chronic here. Brian Clark and Brian Adams. They didn't last very long in WWE. I think they lasted one match. And it was so bad, they were not brought back after that. That was the end of their run. It's going to be Chronic taking on the Mega Maniacs of Hulk Hogan and Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Nope. Not on my card. Onward we go. Women's Be the Booker. Which one died? Brian Adams died. Crush. He passed away many years ago. Women's Be the Booker. We begin with, it's Beth Phoenix. It's angry Beth Phoenix. Arr! Arr! She's so angry. Look how angry she is. She's so angry, I don't even remember who she was angry at. Who was she angry? Was it Rhea? I assume it was Rhea Ripley. Angry Beth Phoenix. Going to be stepping into the ring with Dakota Kai. How are we feeling about this? Beth Phoenix and Dakota Kai. I'm going to give that the bell. I think that deserves a bell. Oh, the Miz and Maurice? Okay, that's right. That's right. I forgot about that. So it was the Miz and Maurice. Or was it Rhea? I don't know. I'm getting conflicting messages now from you people. I think it might have been Miz and Maurice. Anyway, main event time. Men's Be the Booker. Oh, boy. Look who showed up to work, everybody. It's Miro. I just got done talking about this guy on the podcast this weekend. I can't believe he actually showed up to work. Amazing. So it's going to be Miro going one-on-one with Hook. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. My earpiece. I'm being told. Okay. All right. Yeah. I got it. All right. Well, unfortunately, I've been told that Miro did not approve of this creative, and he has left. He has gone home. Apparently, he's bought a ticket back to Bulgaria. So he said that doesn't work for him, brother. Which means that we have to book a new opponent. We have to book a new opponent for Hook. Because Miro did not approve of the creative. Hook. Taking on Shingo Takagi. Shingo will make that match good. Shingo's like a wizard in that ring, man. Shingo is the fucking man. When it comes to putting together a great match, you can depend on Shingo. I have faith in Shingo. Breaks my heart, though, to see that belt. Compared to the previous IWGP belt, it breaks my heart. Why would you change away from greatness? Why would you do that? I'll never understand it. I really won't. Hey, Robert Fox with the $5 super chat. No Mercedes Moné on Dynamite tonight. Hallelujah. Everything about her in AEW has been awful so far. Yeah, I'm a little surprised that I don't even think she was mentioned. But yeah, no Mercedes tonight. You got a reprieve from her this week. Yeah, I mean, that previous IWGP belt, I guess it's like version 4, is it's just a gorgeous belt. I just don't know why you would change away from it. Marquand, 1976. Tell Miro he can't leave. We bought his house. That's right. That's right. The fans bought his house. Okay, so Daddy Ugarte says, apparently Mercedes came out after the taping to do her CEO dance with Tony Khan. So cringe. Oh my God. So does that mean there's video of Tony Khan doing the CEO dance? Oh boy. Well, thank you guys for helping me hit our goal tonight and all of your support and hanging out with me on a Wednesday night. What's up, Harry? I hope you're having a good night as well. I won't be looking for that video either, Tuxedo. Tuxedo T Servo says, I won't be looking for that video. Yeah. I'm sure I'll be tagged in it, but I won't be looking for it myself either. Anyway, as if he couldn't get any weirder. Friday night, come on back here. We'll talk about SmackDown. We'll see what's next for Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. Right? We'll find out, I guess. We have Bad Blood coming up, so something's got to give. Something should go down this Friday night. We'll find out what it is. Be well. Be well. Stay safe. Oh, my God, that's right. Tony Khan did Daniel Garcia's dance. I think Tony Khan, maybe he might have promised Daniel Garcia that if he re-signs with the company, he'll do the dance with him. And maybe that's why Garcia is thinking about leaving. He can't stomach the thought of that. That might be what chases him to the Performance Center. Is Tony Khan doing his dance with him? What was the, oh God, who was that person years ago when people were tormenting Britney Spears and that fan recorded that video? Leave Britney alone. Leave Tony alone. What did he ever do? Leave Tony alone. We have to have some fun at Tony Khan's expense. Come on. We're here to have fun. He makes it so easy. Chris Crocker. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. I couldn't remember the name. Leave Tony alone. Tony better announce that TV deal next week. That's what Tony needs to announce. All right, I'm out of here. I'll see you guys on Friday night for SmackDown. Take care, guys.